You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of We Deepen, and also leader of the Love Club, a mastermind community for seekers, couples, singles, anyone who wants an epic love life this lifetime. We study love in community through masterminds, couples workshops, bonding sessions, collaborative matchmaking. You don't have to do love alone, and you don't have to get all your information and process reality just through listening to podcasts or looking on social media or Googling relationship advice. You get to come and be with other people who want to experience healthy, loving, meaningful relationships this lifetime. And if you're in a relationship, you can come as an individual or you can join with your significant other, whatever you have the time to do. But I do encourage you to invest time and energy into studying love. I've identified a whole entire industry. There is a relationship industry. There's a bunch of teachers, modalities, experiences, concepts that can help you have an epic love life. And most people don't even know all that exists. Through this podcast, I aim to share these people with you. And today's guest, Dr. John Gray, is the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. He's an OG in the space. You've probably heard John Gray's name before. We get into a compelling conversation of all things love, of the landscape. We talk about polyamory, monogamy. We also go deep towards the end into having a little bit of thoughtful discourse. I get John's opinion on what is happening in the relationship landscape. Now, the one thing about John Gray that I'll mention as you go into it, he is very much an advocate of the difference of men and women and how our brains work and how our hormonal system works differently. You're going to get a lot of juicy, interesting information in this episode. So enjoy it. And if you do like it, please do rate, subscribe, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it, helps me continue to host this podcast. And while, again, I love speaking to you in this way, what I love even more is being with you in person. We meet online, but hear what's happening in Austin, Texas right now. As I'm recording this, we are about to go into a 4-day Love Club immersion. Over 20 people are coming together for an intimate gathering to mastermind our love lives at a beautiful estate here in Austin, Texas. And then on Friday evening, the relationship industry, those professionals who are working in love and relationships, experts, are coming together for a big event here at True Food Kitchen. I wanted you to know, although you're probably listening to it past the time that those events have had, I want you to know that it's existing and there's a whole world and a whole industry that I am aiming to share with you through this podcast, through WeDeepen.com, through WeDeepenLoveClub.com. So check it out. I love you. Enjoy this episode. Okay, John, one thing that I have been thinking about as it relates to you, there's so many people nowadays that are accessing love and relationships as their field of expertise. You know, they're going into becoming relationship experts or professionals. I look to you as like an OG in this field. What drove you to make this your career, to teach love and relationships?
Celibacy.
You're a meditating monk.
A meditating monk. You know, I was, as a teenager, I loved sex. Okay. I was enamored with sex, and Also with getting high, I've always been into getting high, altered. I was meditating at 3 years old. I would sit and just close my eyes. And I didn't know I was meditating. And then my brothers had 4 older brothers, and so they were bothering me, So then I dug a hole in the backyard around 8 years old, 7 years old, and I just sat in my hole. And then my father fell in the hole by mistake. It was behind the garage. And so he said, "You can't have that hole." So I dug a shelf around the hole and put planks and covered dirt over it and had a passageway into it. So I actually built my own cave when I was a young child. And I would just go sit in my cave. And I still do it. And it was, well, of course, I still meditate. I love meditation. And so then I love sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And after Woodstock, around that time, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, all that stuff, LSD, peyote, the whole gang. I just loved altered states. But after Woodstock, I was coming home and it wasn't the actual Woodstock. It was right the weekend after. There's one in Texas, but it was just like Woodstock. Everybody knows that. But 3 days of just being high and lots of mushrooms. And I had a little Volkswagen Bug and I just crashed. And I remember getting in the womb of that back seat, behind the back seat. I was just curled up. My friends drove me home. I was so wasted. And there was a song by Blind Faith called "Can't Find Your Way Home." And that was literally what I just can't find my way home, looking for my home. And a week later, I heard a talk on transcendental meditation. And I said, this is it. This was and there was other aspects around it. It was very magical. It's a big, wonderful story. But then I ended up becoming the personal assistant to Maharishi. I lived with him for 9 years. I was his #1 guy. They have my picture on all this. I tend to have a karma of having my picture in places. So I was in all the TM centers. He proclaimed me enlightened, and I was pure celibate. Now, if you're a pure celibate, you can tell. That means you don't masturbate or anything. And if you sweat, it smells like semen. That's a real celibate. Okay. And yeah, you could actually smell a celibate. There were other monks there. None of them were real. They were just doing their own business. But if you want to have these, I would meditate 18 hours, go in these deep states of samadhi. I still can. I just have other things to do. It's a wonderful gift ability. It became the foundation of my work in relationships. One, because anytime my wife would upset me, I could always go back to my soul where I would feel balanced and masculine and feminine and feel love. And then from that place of love, I could analyze what I did to make that situation worse. And most of my books for the first 10 years were all about how men really can understand women better, helping men understand women better. But then as my wife began to understand, as I really figured out how to keep my wife happy, then I realized how women can bring out the best in men. Which is a power that women have. My wife Bonnie, where I learned all this stuff, is with we're married for 34 years and are together 34 years. And after she passed, she had cancer. I had grieved for 2 years, and then I started dating, and then I got married again. And
that's your current wife now?
My current wife now. So I'm very happily married. And she went through a whole phase. I met her because in China, I've been teaching in China for 15 years, 10 active years, and coming back and forth. And she was also someone who used my ideas, as many people do in China, and was very popular teaching courses on how to make women happy, women-only classes on how to be happy. And that's how I met her. And pretty nice relationship for a guy like me to find a woman who's been her career teaching women how to be happy. So I have a happy wife, and I can make her happier. And that, of course, is having advanced enlightened sexuality techniques, which I think is fantastic. But after a couple of years being married to me, she felt like she could never teach again. She says, "How can I teach women to be happy? Because you make me so much happier than I could ever imagine. And there's no John Gray in China." So, so she's just feeling so discouraged, it's hopeless, men in China do not know how to do what you're doing. But after now being with me over 3 years, she realizes that, wow, I have the power to bring out the best in you. Because I explained to her, I just teach her how to ask me to do stuff, how to share her feelings with me. So I had to teach her how to do that, give her permission. You have to ask men to do a lot of little stuff for you. Like as foreplay for having sex that night, the other night, it was simply, she has this little thermos by the bed. She gets thirsty and it's empty. It happens quite a lot. She says, oh, after I'm already tucked into bed and everything, oh, would you get me some hot water? Now, my house is really big, so I'm going to run basically almost the length of a football field to get there and back to where the purified water is. I've got water in the sinks. It's purified, but not like the super purified water. I'm a biohacker. So I got the best water you can have. And so I'll go get her that water. And as soon as she says it, I'll say, certainly, right away. No grumbles, no growl, no I'm sleepy, no like, why do you do this all the time? You're going to go to bed. You ran it there. None of that stuff. Okay, because I understand that for women, when you do little things for them without any resistance at all, but you're happy to do it, and we're talking less than 5 minutes, it raises their estrogen. And if a woman doesn't have higher than normal estrogen, she can't be romantic and she can't be in the mood to have sex. Okay, estrogen has to peak before she's in the mood to have sex. So she always says to me, you're just such a generous man. I can't imagine any man being like you. I said, I'm a pure capitalist. I do everything for myself, but providing the best product for my people is going to be best for me. It's always win-win is the best capitalist idea. And when it comes to relationship, if I know what to do for you, so you're happy, that's all I want. That's all a man really wants in a relationship. If he thinks other things, he just doesn't have a happy woman. So he doesn't know what he really wants. And I'll tell you, every man I've ever counseled who wants to leave his wife, he'll always say, no matter what I do, it's not enough to make her happy. It's just feeling not enough, not enough, not enough. It's so easy once you understand this stuff. So she felt like it was all me, but gradually she learned that it was her asking me to do stuff in ways that any man would say yes to, and ways for her to reveal herself, to become naked emotionally. Any man can do it. All you have to see, what I did is helped her understand how to be naked with a man emotionally. And that takes good therapeutic skills, which I'm teaching her that if she's upset about something, if she's angry about something, she's also disappointed and sad. And then if she's disappointed and sad, she's also has insecurity, she's afraid. And if she's also feeling afraid, maybe a part of her feels inadequate and unworthy. So helping a woman find those levels inside of her is my expertise. So I did that with her. Then I showed her. Now, once you learn how to do that, then you can have any man react to you the way I react to you. And now she's got it. She realizes she can teach women what I've taught her to do. And when a woman can be that vulnerable with a man, he will always be attracted to her. Yes is his greatest desire for her. And all these misunderstandings that women have only push men away, rather than knowing what you're dealing with and how to mold men to do exactly what you want. Because that's what men have done for millions of years. If you look historically, and then I'll stop talking, women figured out they called it female wiles, okay, feminine wiles. They can get men to do anything. They get men to do the dirty jobs, the dangerous jobs, the difficult jobs, and to kill them, to die in war for them and be happy about it. That's building statues for men. Women have this figured out, and I'd say God did it for all of us. They gave women jobs which produced estrogen. They gave men jobs that produced testosterone, and everybody was happy, because when men have plenty of testosterone, this is biologically fact, his stress levels go down, his heart can open. When women estrogen levels go up, then her heart opens, and suddenly she's not feeling not enough time, not enough love, not enough this, not enough. She's in a place of abundance psychologically. Now, the outcome of this, and then I'll stop and let you ask some questions, because a lot packed in here. I'm down in the Ashwar Indians in the jungle, no Western influence at all, flying in a private jet, no prop plane on a dirt runway, get in a canoe for 3 hours in the Amazon, go through the jungle for 5 hours, have 2 translators. So this is really no Westerners here at all. And so I'm sleeping at night, and all I hear and walk around the different huts, the women are all having orgasms. All the women are having orgasms. Every night, the women are multi-orgasmic.
By themselves or with others?
Say that again?
By themselves or with others?
With their husbands. Their husbands are giving them orgasms. They don't do it by themselves. They have plenty. They love their men. Why do they love their men? Because their men are high testosterone guys. They're doing the dirty, dangerous, and difficult. And the women are allowed in the jungle. Women are in the garden. Men aren't allowed in the garden. Women are surrounded by other women. They're supporting each other. They depend on each other. They have this help, and they depend on men to protect them and to kill the animals for them and to go into the jungle and to sacrifice their lives, because men don't live that long. They get bitten by snakes and they die. So women are so appreciative of the men and shows up with high estrogen. Because whenever you feel I can depend on a man, your estrogen levels will shoot up higher than any other time. You can depend on women, it will go up and you can feel good, but you can depend on a man, you're talking about ecstasy. And so you can go to those higher levels. Now look at the pitiful culture we live in. Half the women in our culture have never had an orgasm, and that's particularly because they have men that don't know how to give them orgasms, A, but B is they're not capable of having orgasms if they don't have healthy estrogen levels. A relationship between a man and a woman can raise those estrogen levels. That was a full stop so you can talk. I know last time.
Great.
There's
There's a lot of different directions that could
you
go
take
in here.
where you want to go.
I'm curious, we're going to get into biohacking relationships and longevity, but a lot of what you speak is very deeply spiritual. How did you know that your first wife and your second wife were intended to be your wives?
Remember my soulmate's destiny?
Yeah, soulmate's destiny. Like, what is, like, I see that love and dating is very mystical. To me, it's a mystical experience. How did you know that? How did you come to fall in love and to choose that these were the right relationships for you?
Well, okay, so my wife now is a few years, 3 years or something like that, and that's after Bonnie died. I would have stayed with Bonnie my whole life. Okay, Bonnie and I, fantastic relationship, and her mother had cancer. There was a lot of trauma happened in their family, and so she had stress and whatever. But I miss her to this day. Okay, every day I finally got rid of half her clothes. Okay, they're still in my house, and my wife now, she deals with it, and I'll tell you how she deals with it. Come back to your question, because a woman needs to feel number one. A man needs to feel number one. That's why sex is so great. Monogamy, sex, is that she's the only woman I want to have sex with. I don't want to have sex with any other woman. I just want to be with her. It was the same thing with Bonnie. I wouldn't even think of another woman. I don't want to have sex with another woman. Biologically, I don't want to have sex with another woman. And there's a biology to that, which people don't understand. They all think, oh, polyamory and having many partners and all this. Look, 8th grade, I was polyamory. Yeah, I kissed all the girls, had lots of girlfriends. It's an immature state of love, okay? And as an adult, to be polyamorous means you haven't even achieved the high spiritual ecstasy that you can have with a person, which can only occur in a monogamous relationship biologically. We have a hormone that gets produced. The only time it's produced in a man in great quantities, it's called prolactin. If I had sex with myself, I'd make no prolactin. If I had sex with a prostitute, a girlfriend, a one-night stand, porn, any of that, sex with all that fantasy stuff, not real stuff, not having love and commitment. If you have love without commitment, sex love, you don't make prolactin. Prolactin, when you have a committed relationship, what it does over time, it inhibits a man's addiction to sex. So what that looks like for some couples in our modern world is that couples just stop having sex. They don't miss it that much. The man's not in the mood to have sex. He doesn't feel he's missing it. It's either a function of low testosterone or a function of prolactin. Some men just have low testosterone, no libido, and they're single guys. But there's married men. It turns out that married men, because they're committed in the relationship, they make prolactin. It's that commitment that makes prolactin. And what prolactin does is frees you from sex addiction. So all of those people in the jungle, they were committed to their partners. They were committed monogamous relationships in the little village there. They were making prolactin. Why were they having so much sex? Because they were free from the sex addiction, but they had polarity in their relationship. And as polarity, it creates a magnetic attraction. So what this looks like is I don't feel horny ever, and yet I make sex almost every night, and sometimes twice a night, and sometimes twice in the morning if I don't have to start work right away. Why is that? Because I have no addiction to sex, but because there's so much polarity between my wife and I that the attraction shows up when we get close. I'm not feeling it any other time. She's like my best friend normally, but I love her. I also feel love, which would be different with your best friend. which I might mention here for women, what is a best friend? A best friend, I like this definition, is someone that when you meet, when you interact with them, you have no desire to change them at all. You delight in their presence with no desire to change them. That's called liking somebody. That's best friend. I like you. It means I don't have to change you. And what we want to do is bring that into our marriages where we like our partners as well as love our partners. Love is where you need something from your partner and you anticipate getting it. And a lot of women today, need has a bad reputation
It
because
does.
because it's there's no discernment between needing your partner and being needy. Needy is I need you and you're not there for me, so I'm unhappy with you. Or needy is it's not enough. It's not enough. A great example of needy came up the other day for me. This guy says, I got this girlfriend. He was one of these international courses, and he says she's in Brazil and she's so hot. We're having the best sex ever, but I'm breaking up with her. I said, what's the problem? He says, she's too needy. I said, well, tell me about it. He says, we'll have like these sex marathons. It's fantastic. And then I'll say to her, I'm going to go fishing this weekend with my friends. And she goes, oh, but if you go fishing, it hurts my feelings. And he says, well, I also have a life and I got my friends and I like to do those things. Yeah, but if you leave, it hurts my feelings. Do you want to hurt me? It's like some song. Do you want to hurt me? It's such a modern thing. We're just so needy. And this is what happens to a lot of women, which is when they don't have a natural balance between their male and female sides, what happens, they go way to their male side, like a pendulum. It swings to their male side. And when they finally let a man in, okay, and he comes over to their female side, then it's like all this repressed female need comes up. I have so much need. And some women don't even want to have sex with somebody because they become so needy. And that's only because they're way on their male side, and now they come back to their female side, and it hasn't been dealt with, hasn't been nourished. It's like you're the starving person, I need more, I need more, I need more. So we all have to find that balance of our male side and our female side. Historically, the balance was, in women, the balance was they felt protected by men, and they were with women all day long, and most of them were pregnant or had children. Okay, so they have birth control, a lot of kids around. And when a mother is taking care of a child, she's actually on her male side and she's on her female side. She's coming from a place of love, unconditional love, which is very estrogen producing, but she's also the CEO of the house. I mean, she's running everything. It's a big process to have a child. Okay, that's the masculine energy, is you have to solve problems all the time. But we call it nurturing because you're solving problems from a place of unconditional love. She can only be in that space of unconditional love for her children, although that's a natural state to be. But what's also natural to get to a place of unconditional love is to have a man who made the baby with you, a man that you wouldn't let make the baby with you unless the man committed to you, unless the man was there for you, a man that's promised to always be with you. So this is part of civilization. If you want a civilization, you've got to have a father in the home, generally speaking, to take care of the wife so she could take care of the children. So because the husband was doing these things that she did not want to do and needed done, protection, survival, all those things, him doing those things for her raised her estrogen. And once her estrogen was high, she can now balance those hormones with testosterone. So she's on her male and female sides. The man, he's on all male side. How does he get to his female side? Through sex. That's why men want sex, why our sex center's twice as big as women, why we're, if we break up from our partners, we're already looking for a partner a week later, generally speaking. And women go, how could he love me and be in touch? Because we need sex, okay? And the bottom line is why we need sex is it helps to balance us because it raises estrogen. A man can't have an erection without his estrogen going up. He needs to have high testosterone, and then the estrogen allows his erection to occur. And then when he loses his erection, it's because his estrogen went so high, he couldn't keep his testosterone high enough. So now he becomes overly feminine. To be feminine, to produce estrogen, is to feel more. and to feel either more pain or to feel more happiness and joy and pleasure and bliss and then ecstasy and feel more love. That's for me the whole thing about making love. The sex is, and I addicted to sex. I don't need sex. She was away for a few weeks. I don't miss it at all. But when she's here, the way I can feel more love for her and just to be feeling love, to give love, I need estrogen. So that's one of the most powerful ways is making love. So how did I know? You asked me the question, long way around. My first wife is Barbara. My second wife is Bonnie. My third wife is Vicky. All right. So yeah, I have three. Barbara was my first wife. We married for 2 years. I'd been a monk for 9 years. And see, these things are all have destiny. The closer you are to aligning with your soul, you realize that everything is falling. I couldn't have gotten to where you are today had all these things not happened. Okay, and every time that we fall away from our destiny, we suffer. Every time you're suffering, you're thinking you're going away from your destiny. But there's certain karmic things that have to happen in life. And so listen to this karmic story from my first wife. So I'm a celibate monk in Switzerland with the guru, the whole thing. And I'm celibate. Everybody knows I'm celibate. I'm an inspiration for others. And one of my buddies, Ollie, he's a celibate as well. But he's in the room next to me. I can hear him having sex with this girl. Okay. So I'm like, Ollie, what are you doing? And he says, oh, I'm helping her. I'm helping her. This is this woman. She comes on to him. And anyway, so then he stopped being a celibate. And now he went and married her. All right. So this is Barbara. This is my first wife, but I didn't know her. I just knew Ollie. And Ollie said, I asked him what he's doing. I said, well, you shouldn't be seeing that girl. This is not on the program here. He said, oh, I'm helping her. I'm helping her. Anyway, so they ended up leaving, getting married. That lasted a year. Then the next thing I interact with Barbara is because I'm Maharishi's personal assistant. If you talk to Maharishi, you have to talk to me first. So I got heads of state everywhere talking to me to talk to Maharishi. I start every day out with him. We plan the day together. He's like my father, and I'm his assistant. Well, anyway, so one of those famous people with Doug Henning. Doug Henning was like a rock star back in the 70s. He was like the first big magician in Las Vegas, and he was meeting Maharishi. So we became friends. And then he had his own magic show on Broadway. It's called the Magic Show, Broadway show. And I happened to be visiting America. I went to visit Doug, and he said, "There's this woman, Barbara, and she comes in my back room. She has sex with me, and she says we should get married. What do you think?" I said, "Don't marry her. Don't marry her. You should be a celibate like me. You want to be enlightened." I was all sold on celibacy and enlightenment. So I said, "Don't marry her." and finally, he married her. So Doug's my good friend, and he marries Barbara. Then later, I end up getting my enlightenment. For me, I'll just say simply, I no longer needed the guru. I found the guru inside myself. And it's like all the magnetic pull I had towards Maharishi, it just wasn't there. And I didn't know what I was going to do. But part of what I did is I just got on a plane, going out to California, thinking everything would unfold perfectly as it does in life. I was homeless on the beaches in Santa Monica, which was not a comfortable place to be. I finally emerged from that, getting some help from my mother and going to school as a computer programmer, which I'm very good at. Now I just program people, but at that point I learned programming. I got a job at Stanford Research Institute. So there was a journey there. But here's where Barbara comes into the picture again. So here I am, having been celibate. What I did now is there were no rules. See, there's a place, you see some of these gurus, they feel like they're beyond all rules. And sometimes that's not a good thing. I mean, there's some really evil gurus in India that seduce children and do all kinds of things because they're above the rules, and they get lost in how great they are. But you do have this experience of coming back to source consciousness, which is all the conditioning that I had just washed away. And I was like a blank sheet. It was a bizarre state. I didn't even brush my teeth until finally I had bad breath. And it was like an act of will to take a shower. Why do I have to take a shower? Things that were automatic all go away. I was now my own boss. Nobody could tell me what to do. And I was going to do what I wanted to do. And anyway, so I had a dream, and it was a woman in the dream. And this isn't one of the women that I married, but it was a woman in the dream. And I was staying at this house where I had just a little bit of money, and they let me rent out a room. She was in another house next door, and she was the woman in the dream. So I wanted to figure out what was this, when you see the woman in the dream. So I wanted to introduce myself. She's not interested in me at all. So I sat in lotus position for about 6 hours out in front of her house. And finally she said, okay, who are you? Well, I had just left being the personal assistant of Maharishi. And she went, wow, I just left being the personal assistant to Claire Prophet, who was like an American woman guru. So again, these moments, these coincidences. And then she said, well, I asked her what she did. She said, massage therapist. I said, oh, well, that's good. And she said, would you like a massage? I said, sure. And then she said, well, take off your clothes. So I had not been touched by a woman in 9 years. And so I took off my clothes naked on her table. And then she's massaging me. And she says, so why is it that you're a celibate? So at that point, I had no reason to be a celibate. My body said, let's have sex. We had sex for 3 hours. Okay.
Right then and there?
No, not right. What was at her house? We went into her house and the chair was out, the bench was outside, but then we went inside and she, not 3 hours, 3 days. Okay. We did not get out of bed except to go to the bathroom, had a little something to eat and got back into bed. Because see, I was used to never ejaculating. So for 9 years, I had not ejaculated. So it took a long time for that to happen. But what I noticed when
You would think that you would just ejaculate right away after 9 years, putting that in.
See, if you meet a real celibate, you can know a real celibate because the semen stays in a man's body. So if you perspire, it smells like semen. Even mine now smells like semen because I don't ejaculate still. I learned how to sublimate my sexual energy into spiritual energy. It's called ojas. It's an old tradition. It's a secret thing where if you meditate a lot, you can upgrade your sex energy.
We're going to come back to that.
And we can come back to that. Anyway, so that was 3 days. But what I noticed is I wasn't practicing not ejaculating. I just kept on and on and on. It was just this ecstatic thing. But finally, when I did ejaculate, what I noticed is half of my unbounded awareness disappeared. Okay. It was like when you only meditate, you become huge. You feel like you're a giant, and yet in this little body, you have this unbounded consciousness that just goes out. And it's huge. And then now it was like, wow, that was weird, but still it didn't deter me. So when I started my travels, my parents gave me my old car back with a credit card. So I didn't have any money at that point. So I would travel around from city to city in California, meeting women who I'd briefly met as a TM person and making love to them. And I would interview them on what makes sex great for them. And
you'd have sex with them first, though.
Well, a lot of times before having sex, I would talk to them. I'd read their palm first and talk about sex and say, I've been celibate and I'm not ready for a committed relationship. I'm just trying to learn about women's bodies, and I want to learn how to be the best man I can do to make love with a woman. Tell me about your body. And simply, I was already a celebrity in the TM movement, my picture everywhere, but also I'm spiritual. So, and also I'm a celibate. So it felt kind of natural for them to explain their bodies to me. I mean, literally, we're talking, looking at parts and everything. And so I learned all about women's bodies that even though I was very sexually active before being a celibate, I did not know this stuff. And every woman had a piece of the pie that another one didn't talk about. So then I felt like, oh, I can teach this stuff. Men need to know this stuff, and women need to know what men don't know. That's a good title for a book. What men need to know. Whatever I just said was a good book title.
That is a good book title. Someone listening, a man listening, could be like, "That's a great way to pick up women."
Well, it was. Absolutely, I did. I mean, it had advantages to it in that I was truly sincere. I'm not about just. But my goal was I was basically wanting to make love with women and make them happy, and I wanted to learn how to make women happy. I need to educate myself. And it was also because I'd been a celibate, I was famous, and I was also sincere. Sincerity goes a long way if you also have power. Sincerity, if you're weak, but I was famous, okay, at that time. I became famous as something completely different later, but in the TM movement, I was like a legend. Maharishi said, he talked about cosmic consciousness, God consciousness, and Brahman consciousness, and I was all of them. Mm-hmm. He had me talking about it and inspire other people in my experiences, because I was really dedicated. And remember, I've been doing this since I'm 3 years old. In many past lives, I've been a yogi.
How did during that period that all these women didn't fall in love with you, and you probably had, I imagine you would have to navigate their hearts in this experience as well.
Well, that's what I eventually learned, okay, is that every woman did get married soon after. So I was very grateful for that. There was that reality, which is also why I don't think men who have good lovemaking skills should go around making love to women, because you'll hurt them. Without sounding arrogant, but that is a reality. And it's so what happened for me after basically 6 is what the root of serious. I travel around, had my route around 6, and one of those people was Doug Henning's wife, and she came
I don't know
on.
who that is.
Well, oh, Barbara. Remember Doug
Oh,
Henning?
yes.
Barbara, and they were having trouble, and then I was staying at Doug's house, and one thing led to another. I'm not going to reveal her personal life, but Doug ended up leaving her. Doug would call me, says, my wife has to be with you. Please take her. So I said, okay. She came. But meanwhile, Bonnie was one of those women. And so Bonnie, the history with her is that she'd been married before. And Bonnie was a TM teacher. And I would go and teach the TM courses for the teachers. But I never actually met her, but she was in one of the cities in Europe where they're having a TM course. And they discovered she was pregnant with her first child at that course. And so the Maharishi told me, there's a woman who's pregnant. I want you to be responsible for taking care of her and find out anything she needs. So I never met Bonnie, but I was already taking responsibility for Bonnie. I was finding a comfortable chair for her. She wanted to have cottage cheese. She felt she needed good dairy protein. Cottage cheese is what she wanted. So Marshy told me to go get her cottage cheese. He didn't know what it was. So he said, go to the grocery stores in Lucerne. It's on Lake Lucerne, and buy everything in the grocery store. He wanted to know what people bought. So that was a very memorable thing for me, and also to provide the cottage cheese for Bonnie and anything else she would need. It wasn't that much. And I never met her, but I was responsible for her, make sure she was comfortable. Well, then goodbye all that. But now I'm single again, and I'm out in the world meeting women. And I just by chance, I was talking to Barbara and Doug, and before Barbara was my lover, but Barbara had aimed at me because she was leaving Doug for me. And Doug said, there's this woman in Lake Tahoe. She might be perfect for you. And Barbara, oh, no, she's not perfect for you. She's got 2 little children. I said, that's okay. That's okay. Tell me about it. So they actually told me about Bonnie. So I was on my way to Lake Tahoe anyway. And when I got to the top of Mount Rose, and that's a special place for me. When I've done energy healing, I use roses. So I've always been related to roses. And so I got to the top of Rose. I got outside the car just to look around Lake Tahoe. And I pointed my hand right down this street. And I said, I want to meet a woman who lives in that house. That was actually Bonnie's house.
Wow.
But I hadn't met her yet. And I went down to the lake. And when I was at this TM party, Transcendental Meditation party, I was in that group. This woman came out of Lake Tahoe. And I saw her and I said, all right, I got to meet her. And when Bonnie, just recently, 7 years ago, when Bonnie died, the last day, the kids were asking her, how did you meet Dad? And she says, well, I came out of the lake. I met him there at the TM meeting. And they said, what was your first reaction? She said, I knew he was my soulmate. And then they asked me, what was your reaction, Dad? I said, I knew I wanted to make love with her tonight. So anyway, so I invited myself to stay with her, and we connected, we made love, all that good stuff. And she made dinner for me. And then I left on my way to the next. And then but I traveled around my circuit of 6 and sometimes others, just learning. That was my thing. I'm learning. I told everybody up front. But Barbara wouldn't let go of me. The other women wanted more. I said I couldn't do more. And so we would stop it. But I wanted to marry Bonnie. But then Bonnie said I wasn't ready because I didn't even have a job at the time. I was still just traveling around making love to women. And so she had 2 little children. So Bonnie said, you're not ready. But Barbara pursued me. And, she left her husband for me and she wanted to marry me. And so what I learned then was the polarity of male and female with Barbara. And we were definitely meant to happen. I mean, I knew her first husband, I knew Doug, and then it came me, these paths were crossing. Bonnie, paths were crossing. I was providing for her there. Then I met her at this TM party, and Barbara had introduced it. So you see that when you're close to your soul, circumstances, you can see how life is always sort of guiding you along the way to teach you the lessons you need to learn. If you're not so much in touch with your soul, you just sort of suffer and don't realize that every suffering is a lesson that you can. But if anybody was to be 70 years old and look back at your life from a place of fulfillment, you would say I could have never reached this place of fulfillment had that not happened, had that not happened, had that not happened. You sort of see the magic of life in retrospect. I
How
see it
old are
all.
you today?
73.
73.
Yeah. So, um, and happier than I've ever been, and more spiritual I've ever been, more physically fit than I've ever been, more sexually fit than I could imagine. You know, it's and the fulfillment of having children and grandchildren and financially successful, all those things. And even now, since you asked about my age, I, my wife, my new wife, after Bonnie passed on, which by the way, to finish that story with Bonnie, and so I ended up now I got my job at Stanford Research Institute doing computer programming, and it caused so much neck tension in me. It was back in the days you'd hook your phone up to the computer and it wasn't, screens or anything, and do your programming. And my neck would hurt so much. I just felt like I just can't do this anymore. But I saved up my money so I could start doing what I knew I could do, which is teach. And what I was going to teach is what I learned from all these women. I'm going to teach men what you don't know about women, and women don't know that you don't know. There's that title again. That's because see, women all think, oh, he just doesn't love me or he doesn't care. No, men just don't know. Okay, they're just following their own instincts, which are completely different. And then, having taught that class, Barbara helped me, and I went and lived in Barbara's house. She had the house, she had the money, and she was helping me promote myself. Within a year, we had 7 seminars around the country with almost 100 people for a 3-day workshop. That's a big thing. And we were very successful. She's a great promoter. She's also a good teacher too. And so we taught Making Love workshop. And then so after 2 years, after we started all that, we got married, and a couple of years we were married. And then I'm teaching a workshop, and she's in love with one of the clients in the class. It was shocking to me, devastating to me. And it's a long story, but I was completely devastated because how could I teach my classes if my wife's in love with somebody else? We used to teach them together. And how could I make money if I'd be a hypocrite to stand up there and say I know how to make a marriage work. So I was broke again and brokenhearted. I processed it, and I began teaching another seminar called Healing the Heart, because I needed to heal my heart, and I was teaching what I needed to know, and I learned. 9 months, I completely healed my heart. I had no more anxiety, and I've never had it since. And anxiety is a big thing for me. Even though I had all those years of meditation, I'd have no anxiety unless I was standing in front of an audience. Even my first talk I gave when I was 17, before I'd gone through all that training, I fainted in front of my first audience. I had so much anxiety. And I even thought that, and this is good for people who think, oh, I want to do this, but I have so much fear that comes up. Usually the things that your soul's supposed to do in the beginning, you'll have the most fear. And why is that? Because if you fail doing what you're here to do, it's a much bigger failure than if you fail doing something you're not supposed to do. So failure as a computer programmer, I had no fears about that at all, but my body said it's the wrong thing. So now when I'm teaching TM, I had all this anxiety, but then I became a monk to be free of that anxiety. But when I came back out in the world, the anxiety was still there because I hadn't yet processed what caused that anxiety. Meditation alone doesn't do it. If you've got blocks from your childhood, you have to face them and know how to deal with them. Well, after Barbara, I was devastated into that, just like huge. It's a big, long story I tell in my books, but I learned how to process the feelings in my heart, and as a result, I've never had anxiety since then. It's a wonderful story of how to process emotions. So then I'm ready. After that, I'm ready. I happen to be driving up to Northern California, and I thought, oh, I'm going by Santa Cruz. I'll call Bonnie. Heard her on The Voice. Hadn't talked to her in 4 years, and I heard her voice. I heard bells in heaven. One of my spiritual experiences is sometimes I would hear the music of the heavens. And people like Beethoven and those guys, they were just tuned in. They would hear what's called the music of the cosmos. Well, I used to sometimes hear the music of the cosmos, which is an amazing spiritual experience. Stopped having it after I was having all that sex, but still I was enjoying the sex. And but then I heard and remembered that Bonnie is my soulmate. And I told her, look, I hear the bells in heaven. We're meant to be. That's why they say the bells ring. And I told her, and she told me, I don't want you to come. Don't come. I love you, John. I've always loved you, but this is not the right time. I've had the longest time getting rid of my boyfriend. It's over. And this weekend I'm going to have with God. And I said, that's why God sent me. This is perfect timing. And I drove all night. There's this Roy Orbison song that I always remember, where he says, "I drove all night. Is that okay? Is that okay?" I drove all night to get there and spent the night with her and the rest of the night with her and we're talking all in the morning in bed, and her boyfriend is listening at the window. It's a big drama. Oh, I have so many fun stories. Anyway, so she says, "I'm out of here." But we started dating again. Within a month, I proposed to her, and within another month, she was pregnant, and another few months, we got married. It was all just meant to be, and I knew it. See, I had to gone through, this sort of open marriage type guy with girlfriends and everything, and then married Barbara and got real clear. If you want love to last in a relationship, monogamy is the only way it's going to last. Okay. Because a woman will just close down. Women need to feel over time assured that you're not going to stray because they know the power of femininity to draw men in. In Brazil, you want to speak, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask a question. What if there's a woman listening right now who is, say, been married for years, maybe decades, and there has been infidelity in the marriage,
Yeah.
and they've come to the other conclusion, because like a lot of women have done, well, I want to be with this person. I don't want to end the relationship, so I'll enable them, like not enable, but I'll stay and give permission for them to have other encounters with other women. Uh, Although, say the woman is like, I'm monogamous, but I'll let them. And they do it, but they feel a little bit like their heart is it's complicated at times. And what would you say to that woman?
Well, first of all, I don't want to sound judgmental in any way because a sweet story that I had when my father died. My father had 7 children with my mother, and they stayed together, and they were happy. I never saw them fighting, and we're a happy family. And I had no idea of all the problems couples have. Okay, I just grew up in Houston, Texas, and it seemed like everything was hunky dory. One of these Leave It to Beaver type lives. So and I was shocked when I became a therapist, all the problems that couples have. Part of it is becoming a therapist was the curiosity of why do people get divorced? Why do they have these problems? What's going on? I had no exposure to it. Well, when my dad died, and he died suddenly, he was robbed and left in the trunk of his car while I was on my honeymoon. So it was a big
Oh,
shock.
goodness.
I had a great relationship with my dad, and there was the funeral, and my mother was there at the funeral, and I saw this other girl who was like a little younger than my sister. And that sister is, the number six, and then another brother, number seven. And so she was a little bit younger than my sister, looked just like my sister with a few variations, because clearly she had another mother. But I asked her, "How do you know my dad?" And she's, "Oh, your dad. Where are you from? Austin, 3-hour drive from Houston. And how do you know my dad? Oh, he's always so nice to my mother. And me too. He bought me my car. He paid for my college. He's always so nice to my mother." So, okay. So I went and told my mom, I think I have a sister here, half sister. And she's over there. It looks just like Virginia. My mother just smiled and she said, you know, "I've always known your father had other responsibilities, but he took good care of us." And I said, "But Mom, that's supposed to be upsetting, your father cheating on you." She goes, "That's your generation. In my generation, if your husband took good care of you and he had other responsibilities, it was not a problem." So that's one way of looking at it. Now, clearly, I read between the lines. I didn't ask more questions, but clearly my mother lost her sex drive, and my dad has my sex drive, which is
Mm.
Superman. Okay. So, and he was in Canada. I know I've got family in Canada as well, because he went every week to Canada. He didn't even go that often to Austin. And that would have been the first. So I know he had a lot of response. He had plenty of money. He was an oil man. He made money and he took care of other people. And I could see how my mother adjusted to that. And if you look at like throughout time, if you have the president of France, he'll have his mistress right there at his funeral, and the two women know each other. As long as you don't embarrass your wife, you don't put it in their face and you provide what they need. It was another time. But what's different also about this time is in that time, what a woman needed most from a man was providing financial security, and go back further to the Ashwar Indians. You need to go in the jungle and do that stuff. I don't want to do it. So that's what made women feel love for a man, because married love is conditional love. A man has to do certain things to provide for a woman's needs. When her needs are fulfilled, then she will love him. If her needs are not fulfilled, she will stop loving him. Period. I see it all the time. It's all, and they'll rationalize it. It's not like they're this evil person. They'll say, "Oh, I give and give and give and give. I don't get my needs met." Well, I don't care what you give. It's not what he needs. You're not getting your needs met. You won't love him. Period. And the same thing for a man. A wife, when men divorce today, usually they're more reluctant to divorce than women are because they feel a greater sense of responsibility for the children. Generally speaking, we're just talking generalities. These are actual facts. That when a man leaves, I talk to him, "Why are you leaving?" He'll say, "Because no matter what I do, it's not enough to make her happy." And it's very easy for me with men, and they change very quickly because I explain to them, as long as they haven't already committed to another woman, then it's a back and forth thing. But I explain to them, "You're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. That's why your wife's not happy. Try this and you'll be a happy woman." And I can change marriages very quickly when it's the man who is leaving. Now, when the woman is leaving, it's usually she's got years of resentment built up. And it's not as easy because, she sort of feels like, "I just don't love him. I can't love him. And I have so much resentment." And I say, "Well, give me a chance to teach him what to do the things women need. And that will soften your heart. And then evaluate. When your heart's open, then you can see if you really want to be with him." But it takes a long time for a woman who's opened her heart to a man to close it. She's gathered evidence for a long time. And finally she's, "Okay, I made my decision. I'm going to leave." It's pretty much a rock solid decision. And men don't realize that because men can just throw a tantrum and say, "I'm out of here," and then get horny and come back. It's a very different reality, but still, if women can hear when I explain to them how you're doing everything wrong when you think you were doing everything right. That no woman goes into a relationship planning to do wrong stuff, nor does any man. But women work way harder in the relationship than men typically. 90% of the relationship books are bought by women, written by men and women who don't know anything about gender differences. I think
I think sometimes too, as women they play the cool card as opposed to sharing their heart and what they're experiencing. So if you're, you know, dating and you like a guy and maybe he wants to be polyamory, you want his attention. And so you compromise or you maybe go against your natural grain and you accept particular behaviors and you play it cool. Like, "I'm cool. I can handle that."
exactly right. No, I've counseled women in that situation. I've helped them actually get in touch with the fact that it's the only way they can keep the relationship is to be okay with this immature desire that a man has. And the reason I say it's immature desire a man has is because there's no strength in it. There's no commitment in it. There's no power in it. It's all just him satisfying his needs. He's way on his female side. Typically, we would call men like that playboys. They play. They're just having fun. There's no masculine. They lose their masculinity, and our culture is supporting that. All this hedonism and indulge. It's back to the Olympics with Dionysus, a time where everybody's indulging in sex, and then finally everybody's fighting wars with everybody. It's not this fun time for everybody. Men only become violent when their female energy is too high. And sex is one of the most powerful things to raise his female energy. So if you don't have sex without responsibility, you're just a hedonist, and you're moody, and you're angry, and you're irritable, and you don't commit, and you die sooner. You have more sicknesses, and this is all proven biologically. We have studies showing that men who are not committed die sooner, and women too. If you don't have that, women typically they know what they want. They do not want. Unless a woman's way lost her femininity, she wants to have other men. Okay, this is Chinese women. Okay, they have no faith in men at all. This is what's happening. Women suddenly can make a lot of money, and they're doing it because women tend to work a lot harder than men. Why is that? Because it's easy for women to go to their male side and work hard. Because if you don't feel safe, you go to your male side. When a man doesn't feel confident, he goes to his female side and wants to play. He just wants to have.
And so if a man is playing, so, let's fast forward again to the relationship that has been together for years or decades. And so there's this craving for novelty. I mean, midlife crisis, you want something exciting. How would a couple find that together as opposed to going outside of the relationship for that.
I don't want to sound judgmental of everything which is taught to do that, but things are being taught. People are doing threesomes right here in my town as fundraisers for the elementary school. They have key parties. You pay, $500, and all the men put their keys in a basket, and the women pull the key out and have sex with the man who drives that car. They go home with him. This is like what's going on in my town, Mill Valley, where they're all professionals. Professionals aren't having sex. Okay, this is women who are all on their male side. They don't have sex with their husbands. Sex is boring. They're just bored to death. They got these children responsibilities that already can interrupt their sexual feelings. They're going to jobs as, investors. They're lawyers. They're accountants. They're they're .com people. These people don't have intimacy. They're working. They're workaholics. The women are making tons of money, and the men are making tons of money. So they have no sex. They have no love. They can feel in their brains they love it. They don't have any real dependence on each other, and they don't have the skills for it. Business skills don't work in a relationship. So you were driving at home. What can you do? All right. So what I'm just saying is the problem's everywhere. As soon as women are on their male side, there's no sex in the relationship. Women will complain about sex, but their body's not lubricating, ready to have sex. They're wanting him to desire her the way he used to, and they're bored. They're not feeling it. Just a funny story to break the seriousness of this. One of my new clients was calling me up. We need your help. We need your and she said, I organized this we work together. We're very successful together. And we heard your talk. And so now we want to create romance. So I went, I got the hotel, I got the retreat. I planned the whole thing for this great romantic weekend. And then, he makes love to me. The whole thing is 10 minutes, I was so upset. I just started screaming, and I screamed for an hour. And I said, well, you should have been screaming during sex. It would have lasted longer. I said, you can't enjoy a getaway like that. You organized everything. You were the man. You were shut down. A man can't last for an hour with you if you're shut down. This is the whole point of foreplay. Is foreplay is you raise a woman's estrogen levels. And what I learned just enough in the bedroom is it's okay. And it's definitely better than what most men know to do. I'm doing foreplay all the time. My wife's in the mood all the time when we get into bed. And the reason for that is because, and it wasn't this way with Bonnie. I didn't have all the skills then. All right. I had the skills on the weekends. If we went on a little vacation, that was enough foreplay that we had on the weekends. Because see, you take a woman to a hotel, she doesn't have to think about making the bed, cleaning the sheets, everything's done for you. Whenever women feel things are done for them, they can depend on others. You're taking to a restaurant where she's going to have somebody cook for her, clean for her, no dishes to do, no children to take care of. All these things are being done for her. That's basically, it's ultimately, look at this, how women complain about all these narcissistic men. It's all about me, 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 me. And when women are complaining, they want a divorce, all they do is list, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting this. Well, it's nothing wrong with thinking me, me, me. That's the female nature. It's like receptive. I need to receive, otherwise I can't love you. But you can't blame him for not giving to you if you don't ask him. You tend to know what to do. These Ashwar guys, they're taught by their culture. You don't need romantic skills. You need to just do the stuff she doesn't like to do. Well, now women are doing stuff they don't like to do. They're out there making money. In the beginning, it's exciting with all the power that you get from it, but it's a burnout. It's a drag. After a while, it's highly stressful. Research bears this out. Women in the workplace make twice as much stress hormones as men. When they come home from the workplace, they have twice as high. It doubles again. Life is stress for women today. And then add children to the mix. Oh my God, no sex at all. So back to what can a couple do? So here's the biology. This is why this title of this talk is Love, Romance, and Longevity. We're biohackers. How do you biohack longevity? All this other stuff. But if your hormones aren't in balance, you're not going to live a long life. So first of all, we should know some research, big studies. Who lives the longest and who's healthiest? Do you know who is?
Are you saying men or women? Is it between men and women?
Can look at who are the healthiest men, who are the healthiest women. What category do you put them in? Biohackers?
Biohackers, yeah. I put them.
Well,
yeah.
The research shows in terms of, again, you have a bell curve. On average, covering millions of people in America, and biohackers are a small group of that, for sure. The people who live longest are married couples, heterosexual, married couples. And then people say to me, well, that must be the happy ones. I said, no, it's the ones who stay together. Because
Mm.
man stays with a woman, does his best to love her. And men who stay do their best to love her. What they end up doing is they sacrifice having a sex life for their family. Men are the ones who think, I don't want to break up the family for my children. Women go, but I have to be free. I have to follow my heart, and all this baloney that they're fed. When you're married, you have a responsibility. It's no longer about just me. It's about all of us. It's a family. And we have all the research. I wrote a whole book on boy crisis, which how boys are affected from divorce. There's a huge amount of research showing this. And if you look at divorce, women are 8 times more likely to diss the husband than the husband is to diss the wife. You give negative messages about a parent, you're hurting your children always. And people want to just go into denial, not look at that. But I don't say stay in a bad marriage. What I say is make your marriage good and realize the only reason the marriage isn't good, and 90% of the time, is you, whoever you are. It's you. You have to learn new ways of interacting, and nobody has taught you. And you go to counselors today. The door, when we had the lockdown and the so-called COVID virus going around killing these people, the only people who died, 90%, went to the hospital. Hospital killed them. They killed them on those respirators. They killed them by not giving them any treatment for it. If you went to the hospital, it killed you. You want to look at all the divorce, 90% of the divorce, I would guess, we don't have a study on this, but it's kind of obvious, you went to a counselor. Go to a counselor, your marriage is probably over, except for a few exceptions. Don't go to a counselor. If you're going to go to somebody, go to a counselor who says, I believe men and women are different.
Mm.
Imagine you have prostate troubles when you're a man and you go to a doctor who says, I'm going to treat you just like a woman. Or you have female problems. You're going to go to a guy who only's been trained in prostate. What are you going to do? You're going to get the wrong advice. You cannot get good advice. And most therapy just listen to people feeling sorry for them and say, poor you, poor you. And then you give advice that doesn't work if you give any advice at all. And it's just a mess. So you want to get a divorce, go see a counselor. You find a counselor who's, I have thousands of counselors who used to be called Mars Venus counselors. We don't do that anymore. We now have Mars Venus coaches though. But these are therapists who understand Men Are From Mars. If you're going to go to a counselor, you can say to them first, have you read Men Are From Mars? Do you believe in gender differences? Is your guidance gender specific? If it's not gender specific, you will always get the wrong advice. You will ruin your relationships. You have no chance today in surviving a relationship if you're having troubles. Now, some people just have an innate knowledge that men and women are different. They accept that. They're more traditional. They're more conservative. The liberals, 80% of the people who stay married are conservatives, and they believe in God, 80%. 20%, all the rest of all those divorces are people who are liberals who think men and women are the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the problem. I mean, this is reality. Your children are going to be messed up too. And that's all your divorces. Most of your divorces are all liberals. The conservatives stay together. And you can judge them. Maybe they're not having sex that often or whatever. Like my parents gave rise to great kids, great family. They were happy. But again, can you be happier? If you want to be happier in our world today, and I feel that that's why so many people want divorce, is they want to be happier, because people like me are talking about you can be happier. You can see it in the movies. You can get a scene where they go through a drama, and then you see a couple falling in love, and you kind of go, that's what I want. That's what I want. And you feel, oh, I did that in the beginning. So if you want to feel like what you felt like in the beginning, you have to be like you were in the beginning. And so how do you do that? Well, here's one biohack. I mean, I know we're all about biohacking, and my whole thing is biohacking love. And so I'm going to give a few biohacks in our final minutes together. We've already gone way over time, but I'm okay with that if you are.
I'm okay with that. And I definitely want to talk to you about the relationship industry before we wrap. So let's get this biohacking love. And by the way, last week I was at 40 Years of Zen, and I titled my week experience there Biohacking Love. So this is perfect and on point.
That was your experience? They taught biohacking love?
That was I named the title of my week, and then they give you a folder with the title that you have said, the title of your week. So there it says, I would pull it out right now and show you, but it says Biohacking Love.
that's my next book, basically. It's really what's in this book. I should let people know. It's just to understand men and women's hormones, how you biohack those hormones. However, since I wrote that book, I even more. And here's my favorite biohack for love. So you've got your great husband or a boyfriend, whatever it is. Now, you want to keep those feelings alive. Every day you're together, you have this little exercise and you explain it to the man while you're doing it. You go, I know you love me, but sometimes I need to hear it. And sometimes I want to share the part of me that needs to hear that. Just like for me as a speaker, I can give a talk and I can end it with a meditation and then everybody's quiet and they leave. Or I can give a talk and say thank you and they all applaud for me. And many times they give me a standing ovation. When I get a standing ovation, how do I feel? Fantastic. What just happened? I got reassurance. I gave the best talk they've ever heard. At least they're thinking in that moment. Okay. I love that because I got reassurance. I look at my bank account. I look at how much money I make. I do that every day. Why? I'm getting the feedback. Look, I did that. I did that. That's what men need. Now, that's what a woman's male side needs. But what women need more than anything today is support for their female side. And what gives reassurance to the female side? I love you. You're beautiful. I always want to be with you. You're the only one for me. So if I say that to you, it has a little bit of estrogen. But if you ask for that, your estrogen soars because you're being vulnerable. Think about vulnerability. One aspect of vulnerability is you get naked. You don't get naked with anybody. You get only with a special man. You get naked with because you're vulnerable. You want to make sure he adores you and loves you and treats you with respect. So if my wife gets naked with me, already that turns me on because she's being vulnerable. But what does emotional vulnerability look like? Get naked with him emotionally. And so what that would look like, and we do it every day, and then we do it many times while we're making love, which is why you can go on for on and on and on, because she's constantly becoming vulnerable emotionally, not just physically. So it looks like this. You practice it outside the bedroom, and it helps men come back to their heart as women increase their vulnerability. You say to your partner, you first arrange, this is the process we do. It's a reassurance exercise. The reassurance exercise is you're going to say, do you love me? He's going to say, yes. That's it. Simple answer. It's called foreplay for men to build up their estrogen as they answer your questions along with their testosterone. So you say, do you love me? He says, yes. How much do you love me? With all my heart. Do you think I'm beautiful? I think you're so beautiful. You can say, are you happy to be with me? I'm so happy to be with me. And if you're getting married or you're committed, do you always want to be with me? Are you happy you married me? My wife says, you promise next life you'll be with me. I said, yes, I'll promise that too. Okay, so you don't have to do that one. But you do what's appropriate to the stage of relationship you're in. But what you do, hey, stop. My dog is telling me I'm overtime. She wants her walk. That's a wife. Whenever your wife is unhappy, you're just not doing what she needs. You got to feed her over and over all these little biohacks, 4 hugs a day, where you basically pursue her, give her a 6-second hug, not just a quick hug. Basically, another one is the 5-minute. You puts her hands up for five fingers. That just means I'm going to ask you to do something that takes less than 5 minutes. And your response is going to be immediate with great enthusiasm and excitement. Like, oh, happy to do that. So it would be like the other night, my wife has a little thermos by the bed and she looks for her water and it's empty. And she says, and I'm already tucked into bed, going to sleep, I'm tired. She says, oh, John, would you get me some hot water? So I have to run all the way across my house, which is a big, long house. It's half of a football field. So almost a football field to get her water. Now I could go to the sink, but I want to give her the best water. So I'm going to go all that distance and come back and bring her water to her without any, oh, why didn't you remember to do it yourself or whatever? Any kind of something a woman has to do to fulfill something. A man comes in there, she's going to get a spike of estrogen. And if I give her a spike of estrogen, I get in return a spike of testosterone. So my testosterone levels all the time, at least, are 50% higher than normal. Okay, than my normal when I was a young man, 50% higher. And of course, they spike whenever she's touching me in certain ways. And she wants to do that because she's in the mood. How do women get in the mood? They're in the mood if their estrogen levels have doubled. If their estrogen levels aren't doubled, then she's not in the mood. So it behoves a man to learn biohacking in order to create estrogen in a women. Now, the biggest biohack is, now the research shows that when a man is in a committed relationship and has sex with her, then his body makes prolactin. Prolactin inhibits his desire to have sex. That's why so many couples don't have so much sex or even stop having sex, at least the man, because it dampens his dopamine levels so he doesn't have the high spike of testosterone, so he's not interested in other women. So this is nature taking its course with men so that you don't leave your wife. But at the same time, if you look at nature, which evolved over thousands of years, men were doing men's stuff, what only makes sense, and women does women's stuff because they didn't have birth control. Okay, it was all this stuff just makes sense how it used to be. But once you get birth control, then it doesn't make sense why you would want to wait to have sex, because you're not going to end up with a baby. Because when a woman has sex, there's consequences, big, a child, a responsibility. So anyway, so the bottom line is when men have sex when he's in a committed relationship, the research shows that he produces more and more of this prolactin. Now, prolactin is my belief now. I'm calling it the longevity thing because it's the couples who stay committed in a relationship that live the longest. And those are the only people on the planet where the man is producing prolactin. Whether they're having sex or not, he has the prolactin because he's committed to her. And why can you continue having sex and great sex? Because first of all, you're not sending your sex energy out to other women. I never get turned on any other woman. I do, if I see a woman's thigh, I'll still look and go, oh, a pretty little girl. They're all children. It's just, it's femininity. Femininity is beautiful, but there's no lust or longing. And for me, for that, because I'm so satisfied. I've got my prolactin. I've got it all done. The example would be, it took me years to find the house that I live in. It's got everything I want in a house. Their houses are more fantastic and huge, elaborate. Have no interest in them. I'm so happy with my house. The last thing I want to do is ever move from my house. Same thing with my wife. The last thing I need is another vagina. I got one. I know how to take care of it, and it's always available to me. It's just God's gift to me. What man cannot be happy if he's got a wife who wants to make love to him as much as he would like her to make love with him? And that is natural for women. It's what women do in the Amazon. It's what women do when there's polarity. Polarity means her estrogen levels, her female hormones, her progesterone at other times of the month, her progesterone's higher. And he's basically has 10 times more testosterone. And when I'm turned on, 20 times more testosterone my body makes than hers. Okay, this is huge difference. Think of somebody 20 times taller than you. Okay, it's for her body, he's so powerful and just allows her to feel like a little bird as he picks her up and takes her where he needs to take her. This is what women want. I don't see any men saying, I want to be a little bird. Women want men bigger and taller and more muscular and stronger and more grounded and who don't talk about all their emotional feelings of insecurity. You don't do that, men. And now today, women always want men to talk about their feelings, like somehow everybody's supposed to talk about their feelings and you can't connect without it. Guess what? How do you connect? Here's a hole, here's a peg. We connect by putting that peg into the hole. If I have only one hole, she has two holes. There's the hole for sex and there's the other hole. I only have the other hole. So you want to go into that hole, you get an asshole. That's the reality. You don't want to go into a man's feelings. The only time a man should actually share feelings, like negative emotion, if he has negative emotion and he talks, what's going to happen? What happens when a woman talks about negative emotions? Her estrogen goes higher. When her estrogen goes higher, her stress levels go down. What happens to men when his estrogen goes higher? His stress levels go up. The last thing a man needs to do when he's distressed or upset is to talk about what he's feeling. This goes against everything therapy says, everything psychology says. It's like we got our brainwashed. Not only are men and women the same, but we're all supposed to talk about our feelings. You don't, if you're a man, you don't need to talk about your feelings. You need to change your feelings to positive feelings by doing something that makes you feel successful. That's it. At the end of the day, you have a hobby, you do something, or you do something for your partner that makes you feel successful. Success lowers a man's stress. Success raises a man's testosterone. Talking about what a victim you are, how unhappy you are, how mad you are, how angry you are, how you're being ignored, how you're not being appreciated, how you're, all this is just such wimpy stuff. If men could just see themselves from the point of view of a man 50 years ago, what are you, babies? And what do women say today when they're not turned on to their husbands? They say, I feel like he's a child. They have no attraction to that. They need a man. They need masculinity, and they need solidness, and they need that in their vagina as well as they need that outside. They need a man who's like not fazed, not worried, not getting reactive. And so women get upset. And then what men do is they give you a solution. Then you're going to go, well, that just makes me wrong. And that says she's not happy. So when she's not happy, he feels like a failure. Then he gets mad at her. The stupidest thing. You can't get mad at women. It's like, used to be men knew you never hit a woman. It'd be the worst thing ever. You'd be such a person. If you're in the jail and you're a guy who's known for hitting women, they'll beat you up. Even the criminals will beat you up because you're such a loser. And then we have a society that's all talking about anger is just the same thing as beating a woman up. Men don't know that. If you express anger, you're shutting down a woman. How can she feel safe to open her legs to you, to open her heart to you? It's not going to happen. This is so lost where we are, encouraging men to express how they feel, their annoyances, their irritations. So my wife does things all the time, not every day, but something that annoys me or irritates me. So then she'll sense, okay, he's withdrawn, because men will withdraw. So she says, oh, what are you feeling? And I'll say nothing. And that's what I should say, nothing that I want to talk to you about. That's the end of the sentence. That would be rude to say nothing I want to talk to you about. But I'm going to say, it's nothing. It's no big deal, because it is nothing. It is no big deal. I know that if I just sit with it for a little while and then do something, it will go away. It's like, I don't need to talk about that, but she's going to go, what is it? Well, and he's, okay, well, you said this thing here, and I'm a little bit annoyed by that. I'd appreciate if you would be giving me advice. You want me not to give you advice. Why are you giving me advice? And she, well, I have to give you advice. Don't you want me to give you advice? Whatever he's feeling, well, why would you feel that? You shouldn't feel that. I feel that. And the big arguments. Couples have arguments over the stupidest little stuff. And it's usually women wanting men to talk about their feelings, or some foolish man who believes what they've been told that he's supposed to talk about his feelings. Now you should know.
I think we want men to talk about their feelings, and underneath that is we want to feel connection.
You want to hear a man say, I love you. You want a man say, we're here. You want a man say, everything's okay. That's, you can find positive feelings. Talk all day long, man, about positive feelings. No, but even then, positive feelings can be also upset a woman, because let's say you're upset and you say, oh, I don't feel like you love me. No, I love you so much. You're in an argument. If a woman says you don't love me, I say, oh, tell me more. What else? Why? Help me understand.
My significant other is a big biohacker. Him and I bonded because I saw what he did for the biohacking industry. He created biohacking conference. He's known as the father of biohacking. And my work in love, dating, and relationships for the past decade, which for me personally, I didn't get into the field of love and relationships because I had majored in it in college. It was that I wanted an epic relationship, and I did not want to participate in dating apps at the time. So I started organizing dating events, bringing people together, and very much quickly I realized, wow, this one dating event can't solve all the challenges in love and relationship this far. So it sent me on this 10-year journey. And when and in that 10-year journey, I discovered, my journey began as I'm 43 now. It began when I was 33. And it was also at the same time TED Talks became popular. So I started seeing a grasping to understand love and relationship. Esther Perel, Gay and Kitty Hendricks, I Discovered You, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Alison Armstrong, Helen Fisher talking about the brain on love. And what we've seen over the past decade is that there's like this unfoldment of an industry of teachers, experiences, concepts, modalities that can support people in having healthy, loving relationships. But most people don't know this vastness exists. So my excitement.
Half of those people you just mentioned do not accept that men and women are different. Just want you to know how confusing the messages are. I'm not going to mention their names. I know all of them. Half of them do not accept that men and women are different. They will give the same advice to a man they give to a woman, which is hugely confusing for people. But they're out there and they're addressing what you're saying is a huge need.
Yeah, that is true. And it's Dr. Pat Allen, you go back to Dr. Pat Allen. She was very crisp, and men think this way, women think this way.
You can choose.
You can what?
You can choose. If you're a woman and you like to lead, then you can choose to lead. He can choose to follow. And then she thinks that's going to create a great relationship. It's not. It will kill the passion.
Well, this is actually an interesting, because this is what I was going to
I love Pat. I tell
ask
her,
you.
I'm not saying behind her back here. I tell her, look, Pat, you can't just choose if you're a woman to say, well, I'm going to take the male role and he's going to be the female and expect your hormones to be in balance, expect you to experience polarity in your relationship. It's going to go away.
I love thoughtful discourse. I think that this, if anybody can have thoughtful discourse respectfully inside of an industry, the relationship industry, we can do it. So what, this is coming, and you've said some of these, you've answered a little bit along the way to this question, but what do you think is like some really bad dating advice these days that are given to people who are seeking to be in a relationship?
Okay, well, why don't I just say with some bad dating advice that people all think you should do? I'll just do that without pointing to people. Although here's something you asked the question, I have to think, okay, here's another one person's bad dating advice. If you're upset with your partner, sit and look at each other's eyes. It's the worst thing you can do. You should not do that. The last thing you want to do with a man is look into his eyes when you're upset with him. That's what was called the evil eye in history. It's a woman who's upset with you. Scorned woman looks you in the eyes. It will shut you down. Medusa is just simply a metaphor for the woman with snakes. If you cut off one snake, you'll get 3 more snakes. That means a man trying to fix a woman, trying to tell her, don't be upset. She's got her snakes. You want to cut off her head. How do you cut off her head? You can't look in her eyes. The way you turn the stone. So this is terrible stuff. Another terrible idea, which is also a good idea taken the wrong way, authenticity. Be authentic. Share yourself. No, if what you have is anything that's going to be heard as criticism or judgment or trying to control somebody, don't share that. Be authentically loving. Be authentically giving people the freedom to be themselves. It's like these nonsense people who say, oh, I'm all for freedom of speech. Just don't say anything that offends me. I should have the right to shut you down. This is stupid. This is like, can they not even see it? No, they can't see it. Their brain is not capable of it. They've been brainwashed. Okay, there's no doubt about that. So authenticity, don't just share all of your problems with somebody or share what you think. Another one is find somebody who's just like you. No, what you found is someone you admire because you have shared values. But there has to be differences. If you're not different, you'll just be friends. Another one is get out of the friend zone. This is men talking about their feelings. It's also women asking men about their feelings. You'll go right into the friend zone. Giving men advice, you'll turn them off completely. And if you don't turn them off completely, you'll be turned off because you're over here giving him advice. You're like an expert at something and now you're going to go give him advice. Don't give men advice. Men need to feel that I have the upper hand where I'm helping you. You take the old idea, which had truth in it, although we have to update it, is if you're smarter than a man, he's not going to be turned on to you. That's it. If you're richer than a man, he's not going to be turned on to you unless you're a vulnerable woman who's richer than a man who realizes that I don't need your money. I need your emotional support. I'm a basket case without you. You got to feel the part of you that misses having a man. You want a hard penis in your vagina and you can't do it yourself. Women don't even know that. Women have never, 90% of women never even had, not 90%, 50% of women have never had a penis in them giving them an orgasm. Another 25% have had penis in them maybe, but they didn't have a climax from a penis. They got it from stimulating the clitoris, just some oral sex type thing or stimulating the clitoris. They have a clitoral orgasm. That's not an orgasm. That Freud talked about. That's a climax. You lose your sexual potency that way. Then you've only got 25% of women ever experience being turned on by a man's masculinity filling you up because men are so on their female side today. And how do they get to their female side? More dating advice. He talks a lot. Okay. What are women doing wrong? Women ask questions. They're terrible at this. They're the best interviewers in the world. They get on a date and they're like, well, one is they just ask questions and they have this unnecessary expectation that he's going to ask her questions back. Men don't do that. If you ask them questions, we want to please you. So we keep answering questions and you walk away feeling like he doesn't know me at all. And he doesn't know you at all. And you have a right to be upset, but you're foolish to be upset because you set it up. Okay. You have to know how to articulate yourself. You have to also be able to share the vulnerable parts of you, which are not positive in a way where he'll hear. So you have to present him. Oh, my job. I was so frustrated. I couldn't believe it. I talked to this guy, but it worked out okay. And I was happy about that. And I did this and no big deal. You have to be able to share negative emotions that you have in life. And in a conversation, while you're talking about it, come back to the positive. Bring it in a loop. It's like a circle. You have to reveal, otherwise you're just boring. And men don't know this. Then a man's going to, if you share some vulnerability, a man will just say, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Oh, no, of course I shouldn't feel that way. It's just I need to share it and I'll come back to my positive feelings. You don't have to do anything. I'm just so lucky that, you're such a good listener. Don't have to say anything. You have to train men what to do. They don't know what to do. Then when it comes to bedtime stuff, don't have sex with them right away. This is the stupidest thing. Maybe occasionally it works out, but mostly women complain. All I can do is look at people's results. They say, why you didn't call back? Why you didn't call back? Why you didn't call back? Because you had sex right away. Of course, that's why you didn't call back. Men have to earn their way in. You're just giving it away for free. What was it?
I have proof of that. My significant other, when we were in this dating period, him dating other people, me dating other people, I didn't have sex with him.
Yeah.
8 months, no sex. He could have sex with whoever else he wanted to, but not with me.
That you have sex.
Yeah. And it helped me remain in my positive authenticity because I could be myself. I didn't care.
To control him. It's just like, this is my balance. But then to me, a woman should not have sex with a man until he's committed to just have sex with you. And your own dignity is, I don't want to be one of the girls, I'm going to be number one. And then you got him because you're the one he had to earn. It's the same thing with Bonnie. Remember I had these three women that Barbara came after me. Oh she gave me everything I wanted. Bonnie was like, well, wait a second, you can't just have me unless you marry me, but I'm not ready for you. You have to have a job and you have to do these things. Barbara was easy. And because she was easy, and if she wasn't easy, I would have never gone with her, basically. I mean, I didn't understand what it meant to be masculine. I was so much spiritual. I wasn't masculine or feminine, but I naturally went to my female side, which had been me as a teenager, do what I like, do what I love to do. Until I learned that if you just do what you love to do, you're going to end up on the beach homeless. And so I got a job and I did what I had to do in order to make money. And once I got to the place where I could make money, the attraction went away between my first wife and I, because we were in role reversal. And the attraction had gone away also because you can't sustain attraction in a relationship unless the man is making more testosterone and the woman's making more estrogen. This is the dynamics of foreplay.
What do you think about kink? Now that, social media has been popular, a lot of dominatrix are coming out of the woodwork and they're teaching BDSM to the masses.
It's a kind of hedonistic therapy. People get benefit out of it. When it comes to BDMS, when it comes to dominance, women are dominant. Typically, the guys that go to that are very sort of powerful, shut down men in their life, and they need to connect with their female side. And so what they do is they go to a dominatrix in a sexual way. He can go to his female side because she's naked or semi-naked and there's a sexual allure of the whole thing, that raises his testosterone because he then feels he's paying her, he's controlling her. So he has enough masculinity, enough to where he can just go and let her control him. Because in life, he can't let that down. He's a boss, he's controlling, he's a judge, he's a policeman, he's a successful business person. So he wants to have a woman sort of control him. And then there's a whole thing of punishment. Sometimes women want to be punished. Then when women are doing kink, sometimes men want to be punished. That's all part of our childhood when we've been punished. With my wife, when I take her about through 6 orgasms, each time we're going further until she goes down to her childhood experience of her father punishing her where she's afraid. So she'll go, I'm afraid you don't love me, you don't love me. And I said, yes, I love you so much, as I continued going on and on. I'm doing therapy on her when I'm making love. And then she'll get down to this deeper part of her, which is her father would punish her. Then she feels, I want to punish you. I want to punish you. I say, okay, you can punish me. Go ahead, punish me. And she wants to jump on top of me and dominate me. That's all. That's just letting out this part of her that's been punished where somebody dominated her. I have to explain how this works. The best way to explain it is a simple example. When my daughter Lauren was 6 years old, I was this famous #1 bestseller author in the world, and people knew John Gray, Men Are From Mars. And I think she was bragging at 6 years old. My dad wrote Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus at a resort where 6-year-old could wander around free. Anyway, so big pools and rivers and she was an inner tube. But anyway, so evidently somebody's told her, well, your father's an idiot. So I didn't know that, but all I knew is I'm seeing my daughter come back to our hotel room, and she comes back and she's really angry at me, and she's got her hands on her hips and her face is red, her eyes are red, and she says, "Daddy, you're an idiot. You're an idiot, idiot, idiot." And I said to her, "Oh, sweetie, what's an idiot? Do you know what that word means?" "I don't know, but you're an idiot, idiot." What she'd absorbed is the negative energy of violence. Okay. And so it just had to come out. It has to come out. So whatever violence you've experienced in childhood through punishment and judgment and criticism and pushing you down, it has to come out to be fully healed. And so it can come out, in normal lovemaking, like with my wife, she'll go deeper and deeper into these feelings, and it has a chance to come out playfully. Well, that's kind of where S&M starts out is, okay, now we're going to get in a place of punishment with sexual overtones. Why the sexual overtones is particularly when it's sexual, men can feel more. That's why men want sex in the first place. See, we are body blocked, and some women, due to emotional abuse, are body blocked. But and if you do taboo, you get higher levels of dopamine. Anything that's taboo, you don't want to tell your mother about, and that's all those practices. I mean, it's bizarre. Okay, if you see their parades, we're all walking through. So what are these clowns? Okay, they're all clowns. But if you're doing something that's a taboo that you don't want your children to find out about, you'd be embarrassed if your mother watched you. Okay, so that's taboo. Taboo produces high levels of dopamine, which raises testosterone in men, raises estrogen in men. And you put that sexual aspect of it, it will be very taboo, because sex is this very taboo thing in our culture. But we're going to a phase now, which is they're doing all the taboo out there, and eventually it's going to lose people are just going to completely get lost in it being bored and flat. Just like any drug, eventually you become habituated to it. But it's killing marriage. Okay, so there's nothing special. If you're dressing like naked around, if you're dressing like you want to have sex with everybody as a woman, then when your wife dresses like she wants to have sex, there's no specialness to it. See, there's a modesty that women have had in the past, a certain modesty of only providing more vulnerability to their husband than it's special. So we're neutralizing everything. This is every communist country, and one of the first things they have to do is break down the family unit with killing the differences between sex. All the women during Mao's revolution would shave their heads, and they killed all of the intellectuals or rich people to make everybody equal. 70 million people, that's 50 million people, 70 million people in Russia were killed, all by neutralizing the differences, breaking down the family, where everyone gets paid the same. And people listening to this need to know there are people in the university that believe in Maoist philosophies, believe in communist philosophies. It sounds so utopian. Wouldn't it be great if everybody made the same amount of money? Wouldn't that be great? So wonderful, except I'm not going to go to job. I'm not going to work hard if I make the same amount of money as the guy. They're doing nothing. I have no inspiration. And if everybody gets the same, why my children are going to get what they need? That's all they get. I don't have any motivation to make a better life for my children, because there's no way you can have more than others. It's the quest for more and people need to suffer who are not doing anything and feel pain to motivate them. No change ever takes place unless you feel pain. When you're comfortable, you don't change. And that's great if you're fine the way you are, but none of us are. Well, imperfect human beings, we need to grow and change. And it's through working these things out. And yes, we have tyrannical governments. And what people have to know is the more we go into socialism and communism, we're going into tyranny. The more we break down the differences between the sex, the more we validate anything, do what you like. It's this whole concept of do what you like because it feels good. It's not healthy. I would just be eating ice cream all the time. But I know in order for me to have great sex with my wife, I need to biohack my testosterone. And guess what? The number one biohack is of all the supplements. Even your husband, he'll tell you he first heard about biohacking from me. He calls me the grandfather, actually. I was teaching classes down where he was doing, and he was there. And he knows a lot more than me now, without a doubt. But I just gone more and more natural to sex. Sex is the ultimate biohack, sex with love. If you look at all the ancient teachings, all the people who are considered gods, the masters, they all lived hundreds of years. They were all practicing sublimation of sex. They were having sex every day, and they were not ejaculating if they were men. And if you're a man and you don't ejaculate, it allows a woman to stay and her estrogen levels go up. If you ejaculate, then suddenly your testosterone goes down. That will cause her estrogen to go down. When I'm done, we're just straight up, at least extra 2 inches after an hour of it, and it's just like amazing to see how
You
power.
you don't ever ejaculate? You have to ejaculate sometimes.
Only if I made a mistake, but now I'm a master of it. I don't. I regulate the energy. I know exactly. See, the whole dynamic why men ejaculate is that women can't receive your energy. Women can't just suddenly receive all that energy in the body. That's why you have to do foreplay, and you have to have foreplay outside the bedroom. Then you have foreplay inside the bedroom. You're building her estrogen levels up. So as long as her estrogen is going higher and higher, your estrogen is going higher, but you're producing her estrogen through your correct behaviors. By your correct behaviors, what you're doing, your skills in making love. So, I'm like an NBA sex guy. I shoot a hook, every time, 50 shots in a row. Maybe I miss one. And those guys are practicing all the time. That's why I have sex on a regular basis. But I can do that because I don't ejaculate. If I ejaculate, then suddenly I have recovery time. 70-year-old having recovery time is a long time. But
So you said you only ejaculate when you make a mistake. How often do you make a mistake?
That's called being greedy. Okay. Greedy is where you're wanting more than what you have.
No, my question was, how often do you make a mistake?
Once every 6 months.
That's it.
And I have now. I don't know if I'm really good at this. I look at
You
it.
have sex nearly a couple times a week, every day.
No, every day. Now, when my partner still has her period, so during her period, usually I don't have sex, and then after that, it looks like, sometimes once or twice at night, and sometimes once or twice in the morning. And once or twice means we make love, and I'll go take a shower, and then I'll come back. I'll jump in bed with her. She's sleeping late. We're not like, we have a more flexible schedule. My schedule is very flexible. I just got on an airplane, and I didn't have sex before getting on the airplane. I got ready at the last minute to catch a 5:30 flight on an airplane. But when I got there, we checked in our hotel room. We did it again. And then that night, we did it twice in the night. It's see, a man never loses his potency if he doesn't ejaculate. It's like a horny guy, but no horniness.
Women generally like to feel the seed. I feel like we get something when he releases.
You do?
How does a woman come to terms with men not releasing?
She has never experienced men not releasing who have high estrogen. There's a problem that some men have where they can have long sex, but they don't have estrogen. The reason they don't ejaculate is because I can ejaculate within a minute. I have so much estrogen. Okay, so I'm fully heartfelt. Say that what happens when you get a man's seed. That's the only time you experience a man's estrogen shooting up. Mine just keeps going higher and higher and higher because estrogen is love. And the more love you have, that's why I say it becomes, some parts of it become a little bit like S&M, because a woman will start going into her deep insecurities, and then her childhood comes up, and then her childhood trauma comes up. So that's the greatest healing. And so when I said, it's kind of a therapy, S&M is kind of a therapy. Prostitution is a therapy for men. What you have, like in Tokyo, it's bizarre. I mean, it's really kind of weird, but at 5 o'clock, you'll see all these black limousines going into this area of Tokyo, which are all successful men who work, they make the high-end people. And all these black limousines come in, and men go into these little shops where there's a woman who will serve him tea, and she will offer him affection and warmth, and she'll listen to his day. So he's going to talk about all his problems, because he can't talk about it with his wife. Okay. But what he's doing, he's going to his female side and having a woman be like a mother to him. She's listening. Oh, that must be hard. He'll complain about his wife. This is what prostitutes say all the time. As soon as they get undressed, men just often want to just talk about their lives that they can't talk about with their wives, because their wives, if I say, oh gosh, I don't like my wife anymore, you can't say that to her. You can't say, you know, I'm pissed off, she's rejecting me sexually. You can't say that to her. You can't say you know, I just feel I don't like my job. I wish I could quit my job. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm about to lose some money. You can't go tell your wife that. Now you got now she's all upset and there's consequences of that. So, you know, woman depends on you. She needs you to be a steady rock. So they'll come home and they'll be the steady rock. But first to go talk to a woman who is dressing in a sexual way. When a woman's dressing in a sexual way, it allows a man's testosterone levels to go higher. He starts to feel on his male side, he'll get erections, his female side starts to come up, and then he'll talk. And of course, that's just destroying, you know, the whole culture is dying there because of this. You know, 30% of the male population has never had sex with a woman, never will, doesn't want to get married. The amount of children giving birth, it's all declining. It's because they have this terrible habit of men going and talking to a female therapist, basically, who's undressed. Because all they're doing is going to their female side instead of learning how to suck it up, be a man, don't whine and complain, don't talk about your feelings, come home and help your wife talk about her feelings. See, when my wife can talk about her feelings, and she's got feelings all the time, she's up and down, but never too far for me to handle, then I'm connecting with my female side by being there for her. So my testosterone's up, my female side is up. You know, I'm connected to her problems and giving the solution to her problems. So I'm on my male side. Whenever a man's dwelling on his problems, talking about your feelings is the worst thing to do. And oh, I'm being authentic, I'm sharing my feelings. You're just going to your childlike self, like you're talking to your mother or something. Except there's sex involved, which allows you to feel the feelings you had when you were a child. It's power. You know, I turn everything around here. Everybody's doing the wrong stuff. S&M is the wrong stuff. You're never going to be able to have a successful marriage. You're used to, as a man, you're going to your female side. You need to learn how to help a woman go to her female side, not have a woman help you go to your female side.
Last question. And it's
I don't mean to judge those people. They're doing the best they can.
Yeah.
They have to guide them into having a healthy relationship. And many people are just so shut down. At least it's an emotional release for them. I was driving through LA. I was just seeing the poverty and the homelessness. There's no way my message can even touch those people. And we were living in different worlds here where people can, you know, we just so abused our population with our education. Our education system has just dumbed people down. The tyranny of our education system is awful. The tyranny of psychology, the tyranny of the universities, feminizing men, masculizing women. And at the same time, it's not wrong for women to go to their male side, but they need to prioritize their female side and use men to get to their female side. So it's a big message I have here. You can't just take one little piece and go, oh, he's saying men shouldn't talk about their feelings. No, talk about your love, talk about your happiness, talk about your joy, talk about what's positive. And be empathetic to her negative and positive feelings, but suck up your negative, go do something that's productive, and your negative will go away. We make up 90% of all of our problems. We make up because the next day we're fine.
Yeah. Totally. So I'm going to change my question. I use all types of typologies to help understand myself, to help understand my partner, you know, from human design to
I love human design. Love it.
Gene keys, attachment theory, although, you know, kind of I see lots of different spectrums of attachment theory.
Right.
You know, love languages at one point, I was like, that's interesting. A little bit outgrew it. Erotic blueprints, that's interesting. A little bit outgrew it.
Love languages is so good because it teaches people, maybe your partner has a different need than yours. But when I look at the 5 love languages, men, you need to do all of those for your partner. And you
yes, that's why for me, when I look at the 5 love languages, I'm like, I am not one. I am all of these and more.
And typically the love language that men want from women is acts of service. And that's the worst one because that's what women are already doing too much of. And so I'm going to come home and I just want acts of service. No, it should be him providing acts of service for her and doing little things. That's what creates the hormones. See, once again, and I like Gary Chapman. I think he's a brilliant, wonderful human being. But when you don't take into consideration men and women, you're missing the boat. And human design talks about, I love human design, talking about all those energy centers in the body, why we get turned on to some people, why we need other people. It's so important. That's another part of my message. It's not about gender. That's just one category. I see us, I have a book called How to Get What You Want What You Have. And it's based upon our 12 different needs, which are also the same as the Kabbalah with the 12 different basic things, which is we have to keep all those balls spinning. And this relationship will spin this one. This kind of being a mother to a child is the unconditional love. Being a husband to a wife is the conditional romantic love. Loving yourself is a need we have. Having fun is a need we have. Education is a need we have. And so if my romantic life is fulfilling me, so think of it like love tanks, it's filling up. Once it's full, it's not satisfying, because it's like you eat a meal, as you're hungry and you're filling up, it's satisfying, but after the meal, eating more food is not satisfying. What happens when one tank fills up, your consciousness goes to any of the other tanks that are empty and says, you need to go there. But we don't realize that. We think, oh, I need more from my partner, instead of realizing I need to love myself more now, or I need to go take a class now, or I need to go work, I need to go to my job. We have these different needs, and people in romantic relationships, particularly women, but sometimes men, we fixate on trying to get everything from our partner, as opposed to realizing when you're unhappy in your relationship, you're looking in the wrong direction. You need to find one of your other love tanks, find your happiness. And when you're happy, you go back to a man. Romantic love is taking a happy person and making them happier. And that's a key to all success in life, is never feel like a victim. Realize anytime you're feeling victimized, you're looking in the wrong direction. And we live in a life of grace with abundance. And people don't know that. And why do I know that? Because my mother lived that. I had a mother who lived a life of grace. I mean, she was never unhappy. She was always unconditionally loving. She had a husband. They had great sex when the kids were growing up. Then she got to a point, sex wasn't important to her. She was now giving to charities and helping people and teaching people. That was their life. Then she gives birth to a son who not only has all that, but takes it to a higher level, which is how to have great romantic love, which is our potential, which has been always an age-old secret of the ultimate biohack. My dog wants to walk. She's jumping up for living a long, healthy life. I always joke with your boyfriend, saying, well, he wants to live, I'm going to do 123.
So he's going to have what, 67 years on you?
I know but see, I'm already way older than him. So I'm going to have 132 is my goal. That's what I think I'll live to. And it's my major hack, although I do a lot of other things, is my major hack is having lots of making love with somebody I adore, all my sexual energy only grows as I get older, and it's funneled through her. And anyway, so that's what, it's really well known. These guys that lived for hundreds of years, they were all practicing non-ejaculation sex, according to these secret teachings. And why were they secret? Because nobody could do it. Okay. You have to be anchored in your soul through meditation practices to be able to get to the place where you give up all addictions. So I have no addictions, although I have a little bit that happened in the shutdown, which is I really started getting into the news. I like watching all the evil of the planet, because see, that produces dopamine when you realize how ridiculously evil people are, which has been a lesson for me, because for me, I always think of everybody as God and everybody's wonderful. And yeah, we're all God, but there's also the evil side of life.
Well, to sing your praise, because this is your standing ovation in this moment. When him and I did come into relationship, it's like, we should get a coach. He's like, who would you want to be your coach? And I was like, well, who do you think? I wanted to hear who he would say. And he said, well, we could have Esther Perel or John Gray. John Gray could be our coach. And I was like, wow, you just took it up a limit for who, or a way of who I was thinking. And you would be a wonderful dinner guest. When I was in this conversation, I was thinking, that question that people always ask, if you were organizing a dinner party, who would you want at the dinner party? John, I would love to have you at the dinner party. I love your
visit me too. I like your husband very much. We're good buddies.
Yeah, not husband yet. We'll go with boyfriend. You bounce back and forth, but maybe you're painting a future for us. We'll see. So if you're in Austin, you'll have to come and join us.
He's a very fine person. And if you actually came to me for coaching, I'd help him not be on his female side. because he does have a big heart, and that's the trouble. That's, he's accomplished great things, and you admire that in him. But when men with big heart, who accomplish big things with big hearts, they can easily go to their female side over time. And so that's why I keep helping men have the biohacks to come back. And of course, I'm not a big believer of taking hormones, and he takes testosterone, and rather than depending on you to make the testosterone. See, I look to my wife, she bumps up my test. I look to my work to give me my healthy level of testosterone, which he's got. But then I look to my wife to raise it even higher. And when my wife can raise testosterone higher, her estrogen can go higher.
Mm.
But I'm not an absolute person. We all work with what we are, and he's got big muscles. I don't.
Yes.
I want to mention one biohack that I let him know I'd like to be interviewed with him to share this new biohack that maybe he
Okay.
hasn't. But when it comes to, we talk a little bit about importance of testosterone for men, estrogen, progesterone for women. It turns out one of the biggest blockers of that is belly fat. And he already knows that. And when men have belly fat produces estrogen. That's its function. That's why women, when they're towards ovulation, they gain weight. Their estrogen's going up, and the body's putting on fat for the baby. So estrogen, one of its functions, good for the brain, a lot of other things, but estrogen puts fat on your body. And once a man gets a belly fat, the belly fat makes estrogen. Estrogen now stores belly fat. So how can men in 1 month lose? Now, come on, doggy, relax. I'm gonna take you on a walk. I'll feed you. Sit there. She's sitting, waiting. Okay, now she's back. How in 1 month can a man get rid of 2.5 inches off his belly fat? And that's what happened to me by doing this particular hack that I could do a whole show explaining. It's a girl. She's demanding.
She is. The dog is ready. It's like, wrap it up.
I'll give her some reassurance. But anyway, and for women also, that one of the biggest things that keeps women from feeling their emotions, which produces estrogen, is overeating or over complaining or belly fat. Those are the 3 major things. It's overeating, it's belly fat, or it's over complaining. Those are the things that don't bite me.
This
All right.
is so cute. If you're just listening by audio, John has a adorable dog who loves him, jumping all over him.
All over me, wagging her tail. Okay, I'm going to take you to eat. I'm going to feed you. I'm going to take you on your walk. But let me just say, I have so many free classes at marsvenus.com. One on secrets of great sex, which I think the 2 of you would just love to watch. It's very funny. It's a 6-week course of talks and exercises and various things. It's really fun to do. It's not for just married couples. It's anybody having sex. So that's good. Now, next thing is, if both men and women want to learn about this biohack, which I'll tell him all about it as well if he's interested, or he can just read the book and have the other guy who invented it, Dr. Arciero, on something called protein pacing. Protein pacing, which is incubating protein and breaking down the protein into pure amino acids from dairy proteins. And it's no longer protein, it's amino acids, which if you eat any protein, you're only getting like 20% of the amino acids. Here, you incubate it in hot water with enzymes and protein powder and dairy protein powder. And then what happens is 45 minutes later, you're getting amino acids. You got to sit out all day or for another day, and it doesn't go bad because it's just amino acids. And you drink 35 grams 4 times a day, which is a lot of protein. Now, for many people, if you had that much protein, you would, and you can have 2 meals if you're hungry. You just won't be hungry, but you can eat what you want. But you make sure every 4 hours, every 4 to 5 hours, you have this 35 grams of protein, which is a lot of protein. But your body can easily handle it because it's actually not protein at all. It's amino acids. 95% of it is amino acids. So you're getting all that amino acid supplementation, and you basically, you feel better. And of course, anybody who can lose 2.5 inches off your belly is going to feel great anyway. But that is the #1 reason why men's testosterone levels go down, is their belly fat. And the flip side of that is the #1 reason women's estrogen levels are having hormonal problems. It's belly fat. It's not the only, but it's one of the key, because you can have certain body types where if you're stressed, you lose weight. But for most people, when we're stressed, we overeat or we gain weight. And anytime we're stressed, if you're a man, and this is simple science, if you're stressed and you're a man, your testosterone is low. If you're stressed and you're a woman, your estrogen or progesterone is low for the right time of the month. After your ovulation, your progesterone has to be higher than your estrogen. If you're making a lot of testosterone, your estrogen will go down. You'll have PMS. If you have or CPOS as well, all these conditions women having, it's just not balancing their hormones through their behavioral skills. But once you start taking hormones as a woman, once again, your body will stop making the hormones. And if you're taking hormones to feel good, you're no longer looking to the man to make you feel good. So the whole thing about raising your estrogen is when you're looking to your man to do certain things for you to make you feel really good. And if you're suddenly taking birth control quite often, that's one of the things that will make you even more masculine. They even say when you go off of birth control, there's some studies saying you're no longer turned on your partner. You want another kind of man. What you're going to want is a more masculine man. But if you're giving yourself your hormones, you don't need a masculine man. You're okay with safety and security of a guy who doesn't turn you on, but you're okay with that. But now when you go off the birth control, you're now in touch with your feminine energy, which wants a man to fill you up, and back to that seed thing you mentioned, that's just a belief system women have only because when a man ejaculates, that's the brief moment where he'll feel the most love. But if he can continue on, it's a guy who could ejaculate at any minute. I mean, see, what I do is I go up. It's a simple thing, but the skills are very unique. But if you go from 1 to 10, 10 is going to be ejaculation. At 7, I just have a little ejaculation, which is energetic release. And that's what I teach men how to do, is to release the tension. Because as soon as you start seeing ejaculation, 8, 9, 10, that means your partner, she can't receive any more energy. If she can't receive any more energy, then there's a tension. And that tension is what ejaculation is. It's a spasm from a buildup of tension. And so you feel so good by releasing that tension, instead of going to higher and higher levels of learning to release the tension without having to get all the way to the point where your body gets rid of your sperm. Keep your sperm, to keep your life force. And it's all having to do with moving the woman to higher and higher levels of pleasure, and then ecstasy, and then therapy. This therapy is where she really has to feel safe to go into the unresolved issues of her childhood, which eventually will happen if you have that much love. It will heal you.
So you mentioned you're working on another book.
Yeah, it's Biohacking Love.
Fascinating. That's the title of the book?
Yeah, it may be. I also might be the subtitle. It's the title of this interview, which is Love, Romance, and Longevity.
Yeah. I
want to put a lot of biohacking back in the book. Back in the 90s, I wrote a biohacking book. It's called The Mars Venus Diet Exercise Solution, where I talk about once again, the importance of supplements. And then I wrote another book, which is called, what's that book called? It's Staying Focused in a Hyper World, which lists all these different supplements and everything. I used to have a health food store, and teach all that stuff, because when I turned 50, I'm in my 70s now, when I turned 50, I had Parkinson's. And so I figured out how to cure Parkinson's if it's the early stages. And now it's right there online. There's peer-reviewed studies of another treatment to naturally stop Parkinson's progression and sometimes reverse it. And it all has to do with the amino acid therapy. What I did is I created amino acid shakes. I used to have my own products, this shake, that, and also I taught a form of lithium that your brain needs. And right now new research is coming out that lithium cures Parkinson's, and amino acid therapy. There's studies showing that it reverses Parkinson's. Dr. Hinz, Hinz, is something somebody can look up. Please don't ask me how to help them with Parkinson's. I used to do that. It took a lot of my time. You have to help a lot of people. Dr. Hinz talks about it. And of course, after he became so popular and trained 300 doctors how to do it, then they went back and redacted all of his research. So it will say redacted on it. And they redacted it because after he discovered all this, he started selling the supplements that people could buy. So if you sell supplements, now doctors can give you the drugs, but they're not redacted. But he gave you stuff you can buy at the health food store. And that was his program. His program was missing lithium. Finally, the researchers coming out showing lithium is got a whole book now on lithium. Somebody wrote for Parkinson's, along with tobacco, which is what we're learning is, well, that's, I don't want to get into all the biohacking, but I got all that information. But get
So
to the basic. Love is the most important. Love, and for men, you feel more love than any other time in your life, but having sex. Now you'll feel a different kind of love if you have children. That's your unconditional love. But the romantic love, there's nothing more powerful to keep you living a long, healthy life is having orgasmic sex every day. And
and when you
women,
say sex every day, does that include all types of sex? That includes penetrative sex as well as oral sex, as well as every form of sex?
well, I would include oral sex with penetrating sex, but I think it all, for me, it all has to do, for me, I'll just give my experience as a master of this. The whole thing happens by going deep inside of her. The oral sex is just for fun afterwards when she's done. Old Faithful is just standing straight up, and it's a way of calming the penis down at that point.
So you're a wealth of information. You've authored many books, more books coming out. How are you doing live teachings? Can
Yeah,
people work with you
yeah. Every week I counsel people every week. I have weekend class.
one-on-one? That's one-on-one.
One-on-one through the computer. I do it through the computer. And if it's a couple, they should know. First I talk to the woman, then I talk to the man. And then when all the emotional issues are handled, then I will teach them how to have the enlightened sexuality. Because it doesn't work unless a woman has to feel outside the bedroom that her estrogen levels are doubling. Okay. So it's not like something you just a quick fix. Okay, I'm gonna learn some techniques in the bedroom. Although there are techniques in the bedroom, but you've got to help her to get to a very high estrogen level. I could not practice this with just any woman. I would have to be married to her. I would have to provide the kind of support. See, what men don't realize is that commitment is the most powerful estrogen stimulator in a woman.
Mm.
You're committed to her, and giving all porn, all that ridiculous stuff that men do. Every time a man has sex with himself, he depletes his sexual potency, becomes less attractive to his partner. It will lower her estrogen levels. Um, it's just like, we so normalize porn, but it's actually just like having sex with another woman. And I personally think it would be worse than having sex with another woman, at least if it was a one night stand, because when you do it with a computer, your estrogen level, your testosterone levels for a man will go even higher than if you went to a prostitute. If you went to a prostitute or a one night stand with a woman, you would still have your testosterone going down afterwards, but you wouldn't be as addicted to sex because the computer produces more dopamine. And so it's more addictive. So you've got the younger generation males, 20% lower in just 20 years of porn. This whole porn industry has just destroyed masculinity. All these kids are addicted to porn. They're ejaculating twice a day, 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Very, this
Yeah.
is really sick.
I wish you were local here in Austin, where I'm at right now. This week, starting on Thursday, we're doing a 4-day Love Club immersion. And on Friday evening, we're hosting an event bringing all of the relationship experts, professionals here in the Austin area together. True Food Kitchen and Dave and I are hosting this event. And it would be fun for this immersion. Majority of the time is spent, there's about 22 people joining us, and the majority of the time is spent masterminding their love lives. And each of them will have 45 minutes on the hot seat, and we'll have some relationship experts in the space to be able to give insights and feedback. It would be so amazing to have you at this one, but a future one. So I'll send you an invitation to join us in the future.
Just looking at it's Jack Canfield's birthday party, so can't come to this one. Do you know Jack? Your boyfriend? It's Jack's birthday party. He's 80 years old. He wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's this weekend?
Yeah, that's this week. Otherwise, I'd catch a flight and come.
I know I put it out there because I was like, maybe just in case.
I'm flexible on the weekends. I don't overwork. That's something I realized led to Parkinson's. Is if you overwork, my work is so dopamine stimulating. It's such exciting, get so much love, so helpful to people. It's like a rock star. Their brain overstimulates, and so I backed off on too much. So I have a nice life. It's really nice.
That's what I got from 40 Years of Zen. And I'm currently reading the book Buy Back Your Time to get
Yeah,
myself in the same mind frame. I was like, I'm a master of time management. I'm a master of time management. I'm a master of time management. That's my new affirmation.
it's so, so good because
Yeah.
such a pleasure to talk with you and have
Such a
this.
pleasure. Thank you so much for this conversation. I most likely will release this on Sunday. So we're going to get this out. If you're hearing this right now, you're
And
hearing
I'm
a conversation that just happened.
and this weekend thing, is it, what are the days of it? It's Saturday.
It's Thursday through Sunday.
So would it be appropriate if I came on Sunday?
You're
Might
going
be
to,
appropriate.
we end at 2. I
Oh,
mean,
it would be. It would not be enough time.
I don't think it would be enough time worthwhile of all the travel.
Have fun. Have a good time. That sounds
I'll
great.
send you the link though, and I'll touch base with you and we'll plan for another one with you in
That,
advance.
that sounds great. That sounds
Okay.
great.
Amazing. Thank you so much, John. Thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. If you did enjoy this episode, please do like, subscribe, rate, give it 5 stars. Helps more people find it, helps me continue to host it. And until next time, I love you.